I always thought the scariest part of growing up was realizing that the people you love don't always love you back. That sometimes, they don't even realize what they mean to you. Or worse, they do but pretend not to. It started out the way most of my stories do, with laughter. We were in his car, parked on the edge of town where the city lights bled into the dark like spilled paint. The windows were cracked open just enough to let the cool breeze in. Music was playing softly, some indie playlist he'd made, full of songs I'd never heard but started loving because he loved them. His name was Ethan, and he was everything I wasn't. Loud in the best way, confident like he'd never been broken. The kind of guy who could make a stranger feel like they'd known him for years with just a smile. And me? I was more the background character, the friend, the listener. But we clicked. In a way I hadn't clicked with anyone before. I thought maybe, just maybe, he felt it too. And I let that thought live in the quiet spaces between our conversations, where words didn't matter and the way he looked at me said more than anything he ever spoke aloud. That night in the car we were laughing about something dumb. I can't even remember what started it. Just that our cheeks hurt from smiling, and we had tears in our eyes from laughing so hard. And then, out of nowhere, Ethan turned to me and said, "Imagine if we just got married. Like screw it. No girls. Just you and me. Living somewhere quiet, being old and grumpy together." It was a joke. His tone made that clear. The kind of thing you say when the night feels too honest, so you hide behind humor. I laughed. Of course I laughed. But then I looked at him, and he wasn't laughing anymore. He had this look, like the joke had slipped out too easily, like he'd surprised even himself by saying it. He stared straight ahead, hands on the steering wheel, fingers tightening slightly, as if he needed something solid to hold on to. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was thick, heavy, like the air between us had changed shape. "You'd hate being married to me?" I said, trying to play along, to pull us back to safer ground. "I leave dishes in the sink and talk too much when I'm nervous." He finally smiled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Maybe I'd get used to that," he said, barely above a whisper. That was it. That was the moment. The joke that didn't feel like a joke. The words that came with a laugh, but lingered like a confession. And I should have said something then. Should have told him I wouldn't mind that life. That I'd thought about it too, waking up next to him, fighting over what to watch on Netflix, building something together. I should have asked him what he really meant. But I didn't, because I was afraid that if I looked too closely, if I asked for too much, I'd ruin it all. So instead, I let the silence return. Let the song on the radio fill the space between us again. Let the moment pass. We never talked about that night. Not really. But something shifted after it. He started showing up more, dropping by with coffee, just because, inviting me to every random errand like he couldn't go alone. He'd brush his arm against mine and leave it there a second too long. Sit closer on the couch. Look at me like he was searching for something in my face that he hadn't let himself look for before. And every time he did, I thought, was that the moment? Was that the sign? But then he'd pull back, say something stupid to make us laugh. Joke about me being the wife in our hypothetical marriage. Always a joke. Always just on the edge of too much. Until one night, he wasn't joking at all. It was after his birthday. We'd had a small gathering at his place. Just a few close friends, some drinks, music, bad karaoke. Everyone else had left, and I stayed behind to help clean up. It was late. We were both tipsy but not drunk. And he was quiet. Too quiet. I asked him what was up, and he just shook his head. Said, "Nothing, just thinking." "Thinking about what?" I asked. He looked at me. Really looked at me. Then he said it again. "We'd be good together, wouldn't we?" This time it wasn't a joke. There was no laugh in his voice. No grin on his lips. Just a question. Soft. Vulnerable. Real. And again I froze. I wish I could say I said the right thing. That I reached for him. That I kissed him. That I finally let myself believe he could feel the same way I'd felt for so long. But instead I choked. I said, "You're drunk." He flinched. Just barely. But I saw it. Then he nodded, stood up, and said he was tired. I went home that night feeling like I'd broken something sacred. And maybe I had. Because after that, everything started to change. He didn't pull away all at once. That would have been easier, maybe cleaner. Instead, it happened in pieces. Little things. He stopped texting me first. Started saying, "I've been busy more often." Even though I saw him tagging other friends in stories and out at places we used to go to together. When we did hang out, it was never just us anymore. There was always someone else around, like a buffer. Like he couldn't risk the silence between us anymore. And when I looked at him, really looked, I saw it in his eyes. The hesitation. The wait. Like he was still waiting for me to say something. Or maybe hoping I wouldn't. I told myself I was imagining things. That maybe it really had just been the alcohol talking. That I'd read too much into a quiet night. A soft question. A fading smile. But deep down, I knew. He'd meant it. He meant all of it. And I'd let him think I didn't feel the same. The guilt settled in slow. First, it was just a dull ache. Then it turned sharp. Like a splinter under the skin. Impossible to ignore. Every time I saw him, I wanted to rewind. To go back to that birthday night and say, yes. Or even just, please don't pretend you didn't mean that. Because I did. But I didn't know how to say it anymore. The window had closed, and I wasn't sure if he'd still be on the other side. Waiting. It all came to a head a few weeks later. We were at a friend's party. Loud music. Too many people. I almost didn't go. But I knew he'd be there. And I needed to see him. Even if we barely talked. At some point, I stepped outside to get some air. The noise was too much. My chest felt tight. And then he followed me. He stood beside me, hands in his pockets, staring out at the night. For a while, we didn't speak. Then, quietly, he said, "I miss how things were." I swallowed hard. Me too. He turned to me then. Really turned. And there was so much in his expression. Hope, hurt, confusion. "I thought you didn't feel that way," he said. "That night. You brushed it off." "I was scared," I admitted. My voice cracked. "I didn't know if you were serious. And if you weren't, I didn't want to ruin what we had." He nodded slowly. "I was serious." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. Not because I didn't expect them, but because I had waited too long to hear them. "I still am," he added softer. I took a shaky breath, heart pounding in my chest. "I didn't mean to push you away. I just didn't know how to believe it." His shoulders dropped, and for the first time in weeks, his gaze softened. "So now what?" It was the question we'd been avoiding for months. The truth laid bare. I stepped closer. Not much. Just enough that I could feel the warmth between us again. "I don't want to keep pretending," I said. "Not with you." And finally, he smiled. Not the half-hearted kind. Not the nervous one he wore like a shield. A real smile. "You always take your time, huh?" he teased. I laughed, the sound catching in my throat. "Yeah, but I get there eventually." He reached for my hand. Hesitant at first. Then sure. And just like that, the moment we'd been circling for so long finally arrived. We stood there, fingers laced, the world noisy and chaotic behind us. But here, in this small, quiet space, everything made sense. It wasn't a joke anymore. It never had been. We didn't kiss that night. Not because we didn't want to, but because we didn't need to. Not yet. The way his fingers fit between mine, the way he looked at me like he finally didn't have to hold back, the way my heart slowed instead of raced. That was enough. We went back into the party eventually, but the atmosphere had changed. Not around us, around me. Because suddenly, I didn't feel like I was floating outside my own life anymore. For the first time, I was rooted, grounded, present. We didn't need to make a big announcement or act different. It was enough to know something had shifted. Something real had started to grow between us. Slowly, quietly, but surely. The days that followed felt strange, but in a good way. It was like learning someone you've always known all over again. The inside jokes hit different. The silences were fuller. His touches, small, gentle, carried more weight. A hand on my back. A knee brushing mine under the table. He wasn't testing the waters anymore. He was wading in. One night, about a week later, We were at his apartment watching reruns of some awful reality show we both secretly loved. He had his legs stretched out, my head resting near his thigh, and his fingers ran absently through my hair. I didn't say anything about it. Neither did he. Felt right. And then, without warning, he said, "I think I was waiting for you to catch up." I looked up. Catch up to what? He glanced down at me, a soft grin pulling at the edge of his mouth. To us. That word. It made my chest flutter. Not in that painful, anxious way. In the way that feels like the start of something worth holding on to. "I think I'm there now," I said. His fingers paused. Then he leaned down, just enough to meet me halfway. And when we finally kissed, it wasn't fireworks or explosions. It was a sigh. Like finally putting down something heavy you didn't realize you'd been carrying. Like coming home. After that, we didn't rush. We took our time. Not because we were unsure, but because we'd already waited this long, and now we wanted to do it right. There were still doubts, of course. Questions about what our friends would say. About what came next. About what we even were. But none of it mattered as much as it used to. Because I had him. Because he had me. And all the moments I used to replay at night, wondering if they meant something, now I could ask him directly. Now I could say, "Hey, when you said that thing about marrying me, did you mean it?" And watch him grin, roll his eyes and say, "Obviously. Who else is going to deal with your late-night rants about plot holes in movies?" We were figuring it out. There were moments when I'd still look at him and remember that night in the car. The way his voice dipped when he said, "Imagine if we just got married." How I brushed it off like a joke because I was too scared to hope. But we weren't joking anymore. We had something real. And sometimes, that starts in the most unexpected ways. A quiet moment in a car. A sentence said too softly. A silence that holds more meaning than words ever could. Looking back now, I think he knew what he was doing. Maybe not consciously. Maybe not all at once. But I think some part of him had already picked me. And maybe some part of me had been waiting to be picked. So when people ask me how we got together, how it all started, I never really know how to explain it. I just smile and say, it started with a joke. But the truth started with love. We just didn't have the words for it yet.